In our fast-paced world, the profound practice of yoga has been reduced to a shadow of its true self, a series of physical exercises performed on a mat. However, the traditional philosophy of yoga is infinitely deeper. Ancient scriptures of Hinduism speak of yoga of insight and wisdom, yoga of action or service, and yoga of love or devotion. These are different paths or methods ultimately aiming for the same destination and goal, yoga as a non-dual state of consciousness. It is important to understand that yoga is both method and goal. As method, it refers to different systems of spiritual practice purposefully designed to lead to the state of yoga. As goal, yoga is defined as citta vritti nirodha, the dissolution of the fluctuations of the mind, which essentially is a non-dual state of consciousness. Therefore, in the case of yoga, the way is clearly not the goal. The Yoga Sutra of Patanjali is the first systematic exposition of yoga and dates to around 200 BC. This most traditional form of yoga consists of 8 parts or limbs and is therefore known as Ashtanga Yoga. The 8 limbs are part of a greater totality, a holistic way of spiritual life that addresses all layers of human experience. According to yogic philosophy, there are 5 koshas or layers: physical, energetic, mental, wisdom, and bliss body. Patanjali's system of yoga ultimately addresses all of those and is therefore recognized as Raja Yoga, the supreme or higher yoga, leading to enlightenment. The philosophy of yoga is not a set of beliefs. It's a spiritual heritage based on experience and a scientific method for deconstructing the limited human condition. And that deconstruction is necessary. You believe you're living a free and autonomous life, but what you're really living in is a labyrinth of your own mind's making, a mental prison of habituation. Ashtanga Yoga is not a path you follow to escape. It's an architectural blueprint for dismantling this prison from inside out and a way of communion with the eternal source of your essence. Every grand structure begins with a clear and stable foundation. In Raja Yoga, that foundation is laid by Yama and Niyama. These are not religious morals, but a lawful expression of a perspective of unity and peace with the world. Yama and Niyama serve to control our passions and emotions, our mental fluctuations based on desire, aversion, or delusion. Their practice directly relates to our psychic condition and is an intentional deprogramming of our character. The highest purpose of Yama and Niyama is to eliminate completely all mental and emotional disturbances which characterize ordinary human life, and to thereby prepare the practitioner for deep meditation, the absorption of the individual ego in supreme consciousness, or yoga. Yama addresses the cessation of conflict with the world and consists of 5 principles. The first is ahimsa, or non-violence. Ahimsa really means not willfully inflicting any injury, suffering, or pain on any living creature, be it by word, thought, or action. Ahimsa thus stands for the highest degree of harmlessness. Ultimately, it evolves into a positive and dynamic law of life, both as compassion and service. Ahimsa reflects a universal attitude and mode of behavior that is based on the recognition of the underlying unity of life in consciousness, or Brahman. The second principle is satya, or truthfulness. Satya means not just speaking the truth, but aligning your entire being with it. It is often stated to be the highest rule of conduct or morality. Truthfulness demands authenticity, responsibility, and alignment with reality. It demands honest avoidance of exaggeration, equivocation, pretense, and similar delusions. Untruthfulness creates all kinds of unnecessary complications in life. It immensely drains energy and provides an infectious soil for all kinds of emotional disturbances. It is therefore to be avoided. Next comes asteya, or non-stealing. Asteya implies more than abstaining from stealing and can be understood as abstaining from misappropriation of all kinds. For instance, taking false credit. It means not to take anything which does not properly belong to oneself, be it an object, an idea, or another person's time and energy. Asteya is the antidote to the mind's anxiety of scarcity. It is about heartfelt minimalism and self-sufficiency. The fourth principle of Yama is brahmacharya, or the right use of energy. Brahmacharya means to conserve one's energy wisely and to direct all efforts and powers towards the realization of Brahman or yoga. It is often equated with sexual abstention. However, it really means mastery of life force within you, your prana. To squander your energy on fleeting sensual gratification is to deplete the very fuel needed for the journey inwards. The danger lies not in having sensuous pleasures at all, but in the craving for the repetition of the experiences which involve these sensations. Brahmacharya is a conscious deprogramming of the outward-oriented mind that seeks constant stimulation and meaning through such sensations. The Buddha therefore warned about attachment, ultimately leading into dependency, great sorrow, or even hatred. As anything or anyone that serves you as source of such satisfaction eventually fades away. Brahmacharya is a philosophy of equanimity and tranquility, the ataraxia of the Stoics and ancient philosophers, the unperturbedness of the soul. It is ultimately about being unmoved, indifferent, or unattached to the transitory world of samsara and its fleeting indulgences. The fifth and final principle of Yama is aparigraha, or non-possessiveness. Aparigraha can also be translated as absence of greediness. It is the antidote to the unlimited, bottomless craving to accumulate things, people, or meanings. Any will for possession is rooted in the sense of an identity that wishes to possess. At its core lies the unsatisfiable and primordial hunger of the mind for an identity of its own, the ego. In a sense, the ego is the result when consciousness is totally identified with its lower layers of operation, the physical, emotional, and mental body. The ego can only reaffirm its existence through these layers. It thrives on the authority of possession. Therefore, it quickly succumbs to the pursuit of physical stimuli, pleasant feelings, or mental thought constructs about meaning. This is not intrinsically bad, and many of the greatest lives are built on a strong sense of ego or selfhood. However, from a traditional yogic perspective, the ego was never your true and innermost essence, pure consciousness. It is but a fever dream of the transcendent Brahman. Niyama is the act of turning yourself into a vessel capable of maintaining a higher state of awareness. The first principle of Niyama is shaucha, or purity. Purity is not necessarily about hygiene or a clean room. It is about the absence of hindrances and limitations. Purity aims for the elimination of all those elements and conditions which prevent the five layers from realizing their proper functions and highest potential. There's purity of the body through diet and practice, a cleansing of toxins and impurities caused by overindulgence. There's purity of the energetic system through pranayama, a cleansing of the lungs and the nerves and an oxygenation of blood. And there's purity of the mind and the intellect through letting go of disturbing emotions or impure thoughts, such as greed, hatred, or lethargy. The second principle of Niyama is santosha, or contentment. Yogic contentment is not a result of an achievement or pleasant experience. It is a choice and an attitude, a perspective of self-sufficiency or completeness, where there is no anxiety of lack or scarcity. Ultimately, santosha is an unshakable inner tranquility that is unmoved by external gain or loss. Initially, it could mean seeing the good and the bad, to recognize and remember what is there, here and now, and to make peace with what is not. It's not about denial or suppression, but about recognition and letting go. Next is tapas, which stands for austerity, commitment, or self-discipline, and basically relates to all layers of yogic aspiration. Tapas is the sacred fire of conscious effort, dedicated to achieving a definite goal in life, whatsoever the circumstances. It is a manifestation of willpower, the application of mind over matter. Tapas is the friction that purifies, a catalyst for spiritual growth. Through tapas, you willingly embrace discomfort, procrastination, or lack of motivation, thereby establishing an indomitable will capable of anything. Swadhyaya is a profound journey of self-discovery that blends inner reflection with the timeless wisdom found in sacred scriptures. You read not just for information, but for transformation, reflecting on how the teachings mirror your own life and illuminate your deepest truths. Swadhyaya is the courageous act of turning your gaze inward, not to judge, but to truly see yourself. It is an act of deep self-reflection and pattern recognition. You may begin to realize that your life is not a series of random events, but a tapestry woven by your thoughts and actions. This insight is incredibly powerful because it empowers you to become the conscious author of your own story. By understanding your inner world, you gain the wisdom to respond to life with intention rather than reacting out of old and unconscious patterns. The fifth and final principle of Niyama is Ishvara Pranidhana, or surrender to the divine. It is the practice of surrendering the ego and its attachments to a higher power, whatever that is to you. It is the surrender of the small egoic I to the intelligence of the cosmos. Ishvara Pranidhana is not about passivity or reluctance. It is an act of willful surrender and alignment, a way to let go of the self-centered ego and its anxiety to have everything go its way. To conclude, in traditional Raja Yoga, Yama and Niyama were seen as essential foundation of the practice, a prerequisite for all that follows and often a kind of entry requirement for the deeper teachings of yoga. The ancient sages believed that one must first lay the ethical groundwork of a pure and stable life before attempting to control the body and mind. Hatha Yoga takes a different and more secular approach. It starts with the physical and energetic bodies and leaves ethical awareness to be cultivated naturally and from within. The third limb of Raja Yoga is Asana, or the mastery of physical form. Yogic philosophy, contrary to other ancient wisdom traditions, is actually not opposed to the body. It recognizes both our physical and non-physical layers as essential parts of an underlying unity. Every part is mutually connected, as above, so below. In the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, asana is defined as a steady and comfortable posture that renders the body irrelevant as it transcends the disturbances of physical discomfort in meditation. Through asana, one conquers the physical body and builds a capable vehicle for the spirit. Hatha Yoga, on the other side, describes asana as a physical exercise and views it as preliminary factor for achieving a comfortable and steady posture. Furthermore, asana is said to prevent physical disease, reduce fatigue, or soothe the nervous system. It trains and disciplines the mind and is a practice to purify and prepare the body and energy pathways, the nadis. The practice of asana is therefore considered to be a necessary means for the effective and safe practice of pranayama and the subsequent awakening of kundalini. Pranayama is the fourth limb of Ashtanga Yoga. Once the body is sufficiently still and pure, and one's attention draws inwards, you become aware of a dormant stream inside of you, your prana, or life force energy. Prana is carried by breath and follows attention. It resembles the Chinese concept of qi, the theosophical thrill of Blavatsky, or the pneuma of ancient Greek, the breath or odem of life and spirit. Pranayama is a method to stimulate and concentrate this energy. In a sense, it is an active form of breathing meditation. It consists of several breathing techniques and literally means the control, extension, and ultimately restraint of breath. Science affirms that pranayama directly affects the autonomic nervous system, the unconscious intelligence that regulates your heartbeat, your digestion, and your stress response. Slow, deep, and deliberate breathing sends a powerful signal through the vagus nerve. This signal activates what scientists call the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest response. It is the biological antidote to the chronic fight-or-flight state of modern life. However, yoga considers this biological calm as mere fertile ground. The higher aim is far more precise: the accumulation and conscious command of prana, or life force energy. Pranayama subscribes to a foundational principle: as prana moves, so does the mind. When the breath is erratic, the mind is chaotic. But when the breath becomes rhythmic and deep, the mind is quiet and attentive. And when the breath is non-forcefully suspended, in the emptiness between inhalation and exhalation, in this transcendence of duality itself, the mind goes completely silent. This is the technique of breath retention, or kumbhaka, which ultimately must become an effortless suspension, or a natural cessation. That is because any forced retention of breath is itself a form of mind struggle, a mental fluctuation, or a fritti. It defeats the higher purpose. The fifth limb of Ashtanga Yoga is Pratyahara, and it is the final crossing line into the inner kingdom. Pratyahara means withdrawal from the senses and is about pulling attention inward, preventing sensory input from captivating awareness. Pratyahara isn't about denial or suppression, it's about gaining conscious control and freedom. It's also a practice of letting go that is compared to a turtle pulling its limbs and head into its shell, symbolizing the retraction of the senses from the outer world. By practicing Pratyahara, you develop the ability to choose where to place your attention, freeing yourself from impulsive reactions to the external world or desire and attachment. You cut the automatic connection that allows the external world to dictate your internal state. Initially, it might be about digital detox, mindful awareness, or facing boredom. Ultimately, however, it is about a state of mind that is unaffected by sense impressions, a state where true one-pointedness of mind can arise. Imagine a clock ticking. You wish to read, but get distracted and annoyed. Then, a sudden turn of events in your story. You are hooked, completely immersed, your attention uninterrupted, and the noise of the clock seemingly vanished. Though in reality, the clock merely is no object of your awareness anymore. Your ears are technically still perceiving the auditory stimuli, but your awareness is disconnected from the sensory input. The noise outside continues, but you have unplugged the speakers in your mind. This is the true essence of Pratyahara. Now, all foundational steps are laid to enter the deeper and final states of Ashtanga Yoga, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Dharana is simply concentration, the binding of the mind to a single point of focus, to an object of meditation. For example, the breath, a symbol, or a mantra. However, you can also practice Dharana through Asana, Pranayama, or on daily activities. Dharana is a universal but often underdeveloped human capability. Imagine your mind as a puppy, absolutely adorable, but constantly enraged by squirrels. Dharana is the practice of gently but firmly saying stay to that puppy. Every time it runs off, you patiently bring it back, without judgment. Dharana is about willfully directing and maintaining attention. Think of it as the moment-by-moment process of placing your attention on a singular point. Initially, the mind is hard to control and constantly wanders. But by continuously bringing your attention back to a single object, you progressively weaken the mind's reactive and distracted nature. Eventually, you enter a constant stream of uninterrupted awareness, or one-pointedness of mind, Chitta Ekagrata. You enter Dhyana, or meditation, the seventh limb of Ashtanga Yoga. While Dharana is like droplets of water, each a moment of concentrated attention, with spaces in between, Dhyana is a powerful and unbroken stream. It is effortless, unforced, and it flows naturally yet concentrated. You are no longer holding your mind on a point. You are the flow of awareness itself. This is the state of true meditation, a profound shift where the distinction between the meditator and the object of meditation begins to blur. Dhyana is the state of true stillness. It is the fertile ground where your deepest insights and intuition can blossom, and where you ultimately enter Samadhi. Samadhi is the ultimate state of absorption and oneness with the object of meditation, the true meaning and highest goal of yoga. Here, all words become useless. Language is a tool of the dualistic mind, and Samadhi is the dissolution of that duality. The distinction between the meditator, the act of meditating, and the object of meditation dissolves completely. There's only one unified reality, self-luminous or objectless consciousness. Samadhi is not a state you can force. It's not an action you can perform. It is a surrender into pure, unconditioned consciousness, or Brahman. This isn't about escaping reality. It is about merging with it. It is the direct, non-conceptual experience of your own true nature, the essence of all things. In Samadhi, the eternal, unconditioned nature is revealed and one achieves self-realization. This is the final destination, the point where the journey ends and the truth is revealed. It is the complete and utter cessation of mental fluctuations and the recognition that the stillness you sought outside of yourself was in fact always within you. This is the blueprint. The architecture of liberation has been revealed. The tools are in your hands. The only question remains, how far do you wish to go?